আপনার স্পিকার চলুন।
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the international webinar on environment and climate change, organized by Department of Environmental Science in collaboration with IQAC, Vidyasagar College. We have organized a webinar on environment and climate change, which covers a huge area of various disciplines. Our speakers will definitely elaborate the topic with more details. Let us begin our today's webinar. First of all, I will like to thank our Honorable President, Mr. Biman Krishna Shaha, our Principal Sir, Dr. Shopon Kumar Roy, Coordinator of IQAC, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee Sir, and our Academic Convener, Professor Dipanjan Ghosh Sir. These instructions are very carefully listened by all the participants, please. All the participants are requested to mute your microphone. All the participants are requested to mute your microphone. Keep your video off. I am repeating this. Please, all the participants are requested to mute your microphone and keep your video off. Mute your microphone and keep your video off. And not to share your screen throughout the webinar. All the participants are requested to mute your microphone and keep your video off and not to share your screen throughout the webinar. The participants are also requested to text their relevant questions regarding this webinar in the chat box. After the lectures, you will get an answer to your questions from the speakers. Okay? Shubhajit, am I audible? Shravanti, please reply.
Yes.
Yeah, it
You
is
are
okay.
audible.
Okay, Susmita, carry on.
Okay. Please, I am repeating this. Please, every participants, I am mentioning the names. Shamal Sanigrahi, Shampa Sadhukan, Onkita Roy. Please turn off your video. Please turn off your video. Savitri Jana Sangrahi, please turn off your video. Please turn off your video. I am requesting to the participants, please turn off your video and mute your microphones. Please turn off your video and mute your microphones. Savitri Jana Sanigrahi, Shampa Sadhukan, please turn off your video and mute your microphones. Okay. Now, I want to request our Honorable Principal Sir, Dr. Shopon Kumar Roy, to deliver a welcome address. Principal Sir, over to you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear
We
me?
can hear you. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Audible.
Thank you. You know that today the topic, the title of our seminar is there any specific area on which the webinar is going to be held? No. There are two topics on which two eminent speakers will deliver their speech. Firstly, Dr. Apurva Ratan Ghosh, Professor, Department of Environmental Sciences. He actually will speak on warning to humanity, microorganisms, and climate change. He is from Bardwan University. Another speaker, that is Dr. Shiboli Shadi. He is an associate specialist environmental compliances and disaster management, water resources division, Center for Environmental and Geographic Information Services, Bangladesh. He will speak on assessment of post-disaster uh, recovery, case study on cyclone Ayla recovery in Bangladesh. Perhaps both of them will actually uh, give their speech on their targeted topic, and I hope the participants will be very much benefited and illuminated by the speeches given by Dr. Apurva Ratan Ghosh and Dr. Shiboli Sadiq. Thank you again from the end of Nabadwip Vidyasagar College and from the end of Department of Environmental Science. We know this seminar is going to be organized very soon, and the Department of Environmental Science and the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, both actually are going to organize this webinar, and it will be started very soon. The conveners of this webinar, Dr. Anirban Biswas, Faculty of Environmental Science, Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, Professor Raja Banerjee, Professor Suchishmita Saha. They are the conveners of this webinar. Thank you all because they have actually given their they have tried to execute this seminar webinar in a successful way. Organizing committee members Professor Dipanjan Ghosh, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, Professor Subhajit Sen, Professor Sravanti Das. They are the members of organizing committee. So I thank you all. It is my pleasure that they have actually they are doing their work from behind the curtain, and the coordinator IQAC, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee. She is also with us at every time. Participants who are have participated from different corners of um, India and abroad, as it is an international webinar. I hope the participants should be very much benefited, and the speeches given by both of them will enrich them. I thank you, participants all, and lastly, the President Governing Body, Sri Biman Krishna Saha. His inspiration is always with us. I also thank President Governing Body, Sri Biman Krishna Saha. Thank you again on behalf of Nabadwip Vidyasagar College to Dr. Apurva Ratan Ghosh and Dr. Shiboli Sadiq from Bangladesh and Dr. Apurva Ratan Ghosh from Bardwan University. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Over to Sabanti. Over to hello,
Shuchishmita. Yes, sir,
Suchishmita.
Shuchishmita.
Suchishmita sir.
Okay.
Suchishmita sir.
Thank you,
Over
sir.
to her. Over to Suchishmita sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your active participation. Without you, we cannot be able to organize this particular webinar. Now, I want to request Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, Assistant Professor of Department of Chemistry, Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, who is also the coordinator of IQAC of Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, to say something about our webinar. Bhaskar sir, over to you.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Sir.
Hello,
Yes,
am
sir,
I
you are
audible?
audible. Yes, sir, you are audible.
Thank you, Shrutismita. Good afternoon, everybody. So first of all, I welcome everyone on behalf of IQAC Nabadwip Vidyasagar College for today's webinar, which is being organized by the Department of Environmental Science in collaboration with the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, Nabadwip Vidyasagar College. And the theme of the webinar is Environment and Climatic Change. So I, on behalf of IQAC, congratulate all the faculty members of the Department of Environmental Science for taking this keen initiative and efforts they have laid for organizing such an event in such a crucial time. I welcome our distinguished speakers for the day, Dr. Apurva Ratan Ghosh, Professor, Department of Environmental Science, Bardhaman University, and who is also an ex-director, Internal Quality Assurance Cell, and ex-director of UGC Academic Staff College, the University of Bardhaman. And our second speaker, Dr. Mohammad Shibli Sadiq, who is an associate specialist, environmental compliance and disaster management, Water Resources Division Center for Environmental and Geographic Information Services, Bangladesh. So I'm thankful to both the speakers for accepting our invitation, taking the valuable time and being with us today. I believe that from today's webinar, we are really going to gain interesting and useful information from our eminent speakers on various aspects of environment and climatic issues. Lastly, I welcome all our participants who have come forward to join with us and hope all our participants will be enriched from the valuable and illuminating presentations from our resource persons. Finally, I would like to thank you all for being a part of this webinar and wish it a grand success. Thank you. Over to Suchishmita.
Thank you, sir. Now, I request our another convener, Mr. Raja Banerjee, sir, to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Apurva Ratan Ghosh. Sir, over to you.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes,
Am I
sir.
audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce a concise bio note about Dr. Apurva Ratan Ghosh, my respected sir. Dr. Apurva Ratan Ghosh is the professor of Department of Environmental Science, University of Bardhaman. He was the director of IQAC and he was also the director of UGC Academic Staff College, the University of Bardhaman. Professor Apurva Ratan Ghosh has received the Indian Science Academy Visiting Fellowship and Fellowship from Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai. He has received the Best Presenter Award from IUEAS, Austin, USA. He acted as invited speaker and panel expert in University of Manchester, Texas, UK, and BITS in China. He is actively engaged as a member of coordinator with NAAC NAC peer team. Now I am requesting you to deliver your today's topic, Warning to Humanity, Microorganisms and Climate Change. Sir, please proceed.
So good afternoon, Raja.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to you also.
Now, good afternoon, everybody. Sometimes we call the students are our face. And being a teacher, I am proud for my student, Raja Banerjee, being a faculty member of the Department of Environmental Science of Nabadwip Vidyasagar College. Thank you, Professor Sapun Kumar Rai, the principal, the leader, the pathfinder for this Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, giving constant inspiration and motivation to the students, to the faculty members, to all other stakeholders, not only the non-teaching staff members as well as the society members. Even in this pandemic situation, this academic exercise making all of us in such a condition that we can boost up our health, mental spirit, as well as cognition, cohesion with the other society members. Not apart from them, but in close to them, to see, to listen to them. Thank you, Professor Sapun Kumar Rai, once again. Thank you, the coordinators of the IQAC. IQAC is playing a very important and crucial role this time. They are the repository of the institute. What they are doing for their college, for their institute, exactly they are doing for the society. Because IQAC is the only part of the society, only part of the institute that can link up with the society as well as the institute. Once upon a time, we have talked about the corporate social responsibility. Now it is the institutional social responsibility. what institute is gained from the society. They have to pertain, they have to share their own knowledge for the society also. That is why IQAC and the Department of Environmental Science, they have organized this type of seminar where the common audience, the common people, they can go and enrich the society with this knowledge. That is the outcome of this international webinar today's. My topic that has been told regarding my biodata, whatever it is, but I am be justified when I can give some message to the society. And it is the duty of the listeners, not only for them, that must be percolate, that must be imprint to the other society members. You have to think about it, that you have to play the pivotal role for the society. As you know, presently the human civilization is paying for years of procrastination and prevarication. That is, the society, the human being, the humanity, or the human population, they are ignore the environment. As a result of that, they sometimes evade the truth which is behind it. And that is why you have seen already multiple back-breaking, har him kora, bone cracking crises are unfolding. As a result, you have seen simply because that we did not take the lesson from the earlier one. So, on one hand, you have seen this COVID-19, that is the disaster in the society right now, resulting into loss of human wealth, massive economic collapse, paying ducks and drakes with the poor migrants, which are most vulnerable. You know, the natural calamities, whatever it is, maybe this COVID, maybe this pandemic, all they are linked. All they are the complementary gift due to worsening the dystopian relationship with the nature. We are always making back our nature, avoid its activity. We are exploring every time. So, we are facing this horripilation crisis, which is unfolding the front of our eyes, but which is not we have seen, which is not in front of us. That is another looming disaster, which is waving a red flag. The sequence, that is this pandemic we are facing. So this is the link between the climate change and the disparate events, which is indisputable and incompatible. Now I will start my lecture. This is a prelude. I can share my, you see. Raja, have you seen these slides?
No, sir.
Not yet, sir.
No, sir.
Not yet. Not yet. Okay, I have to share, na?
Yes, sir.
From where I am.
Sir, there is a button in right side corner, present now.
Present now. Yes. Okay. Now, have you seen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is
Yes, sir.
visible.
It is okay.
Yes, sir.
Now I am making full screen, okay?
Yes.
Is it full screen? Is
No.
it full screen? No?
No.
Okay, once again I am doing PPT.
Yes.
Is it okay? Is it okay? It is visible. Now I'm making it full screen, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay?
It is visible.
Now it
Yes,
is
sir.
perfect. It is perfect.
Perfect. Sir.
So now you have seen that I have told you the fuse which is behind of us, which we cannot see, that is this unseen majority. How do they play the role in climate change? That is why I have divided my presentation in some of the main points on which I want to discuss. That is the global warming in Antarctica, microorganisms in the ocean, microorganisms versus climate change versus diseases. It's a general perspective. I'm not going in details about it, but I will touch upon all this COVID event. Then I see research, that means the source of this pandemic. Then I will give you the history of the pandemic. And finally, I will like to conclude on the microbial mitigation of health. You see, when I want to show you that these microorganisms, 30 scientists from the 9 nations, they have made a review. This review consists of the role of the microorganisms, which is played in the climate change, and the microorganisms which is present within the permafrost. That is the frost, that is the ice core, our Antarctica, our Arctic cycle. If you see this ice melts in summer, it's a usual phenomenon. But if it melts in huge quantity, what would happen? You have seen during 1992 to 2002, the total ice loss was only 43 gigatons per year. But you have seen that during last 5 years, it was at least 4 times more. That is 220 gigatons per year. And as you know, the increase in the temperature of the terrestrial, that we call the global warming, if it is 1, then in the Arctic cycle or Antarctica, it would be 3 times more. If you see the rise in temperature since 1957, it was only 0.05 degrees centigrade per decade. That means per 10 years. But right now it increases 0.3 to 0.4 degrees centigrade per decade. As a result of that, you have seen the central and southern parts of the west coast of the Antarctica. These Antarctic peninsula become warmed about 2.4 degrees centigrade. So you can imagine how much ice has already been melted. You see, before industrialization, that means if you talked about the 1760s, if you see that at that time, when there was agriculture and the first step of industrialization, this Antarctica, that ice melts, increases the rise of sea level up to 7 meters. And almost 10% of the world ocean, at least once in a year, that is covered in the ice. Now still then you can see why this ice of this Antarctica is very congenial for these microorganisms. It is very cold, it is very dry, low in nutrients, and dominated by these microorganisms. There is less oxygen. There is dark. Still the microorganisms like viruses, archaea, eubacteria, fungi, mycosporadilla, all they are present. And some of the scientists, they are drilling this ice core to get the microbes like bacteria and viruses from it. And one of the great scientists among them, that is Briscoe, he has found the living bacteria within this ice core of 420,000 years old ice. That not only they have explored this ice, but they have been able to grow into the laboratory. They are the storehouse of the genes. Because this Antarctica, that comprises oldest ice in the earth. And there are some pockets which are believed to be sometimes 8 million years old. Altogether, these microorganisms, if you make it in a quantification, they will be more than 1,000 times than the human in the earth. And sometimes it is stored that if you put something into the ice, into the surface of the ice, and a million years later, it will come back. Sometimes it is told, সমুদ্র কোনো কিছু নেয় না, ফিরিয়ে দেয়. If you put something into the ocean, the next day it will come back to the beach. Same things you have seen, that the things we went extinct, possibly they will come back. Because this ice bank is a museum, and it is the window back coming to the past. What it was happening to the past, you can see right now after exploring this vision by the experimentation. And this 10% of the world ocean, this is the big biome for the earth in the life. And you see the changes which is occurred in the upper atmosphere over the Antarctica, that resulted into the melting of the ice. From that ice, 59 bacterial strain and first 4 Antarctic Sea Ice Viruses have been identified. And they have named as PAN V1, PAN V2, ONV1, ONV2. I'm not interested about this virus, but I'm interested about these viruses, which is causing the disease. That I will give you later on. In the Greenland, it is told, a few days before you have seen, if the total ice melts, then some of the coastal regions, countries in the coastal regions, they will be flooded, they will be eroded. And that is why you have seen some of the Greenland portion, the man is covering with simply plastic bottles. So this Greenland ice, there are some microbes, there are some photosynthetic bacteria, which is taking this sunlight and warming the ice. So that ice is also melting in addition to that. Now this marine biomes, which is covering at least 70% of the Earth's surface, as you know, this includes the coastal estuaries, mangroves, coral reefs, and the life is existed approximately from the -2 degrees centigrade to 100 degrees centigrade in the hydrothermal vents. Sometimes it is called that our blue planet, the beautiful and the bountiful Earth, our Mother Earth, it is the only planet in this universe having life. But no, scientists even cannot find out any microorganisms in the region of Ethiopia. And that is a Dalol, D-A-L-L-O-L, Dalol Lake, where it is highly acidic in nature and huge temperature, that there is no life so far. But the position of the sun is, and the position of the earth, the distance between the sun and the earth is a very good relation. That makes our life Goldilocks. But these marine environments, the total food production, what we are getting, 50% is coming from the ocean. Why? Because this microbial population in the ocean is huge. Subsequently, they are also making the carbon dioxide sequestration. And these viruses and this bacteria, they play an important role, play the actor in ocean ecology and biogeochemical cycles. And you know, the microbes affect the biogeochemical properties of the sea. There is a gas exchange between the ocean and the atmosphere. So they provide food for the ice-associated animals. And we all know this phytoplankton, this cyanobacteria, from the beginning of they are the pillar, they are the base, they are the fundamental producer of the ocean food web. They are feeding the krill, and this krill population feeding the all fishes, seabirds, large mammals, even your blue whale, that is called blue sperm whale. Now, how many viruses and the bacteria in the ocean? They are most abundant biological entities and presume that they are playing an important role in the biogeochemical cycles of the ocean. This virus-like particles, which is called VLP, it's measured in 1 millimeter of water, 10 to the power 5 to 10 to the power 8 in numbers. When the ice melts in Antarctic and Arctic during the spring and autumn. And you have seen that some of the bacteria which is dying due to this infestation of these viruses that we call bacteriophages. And this death of these microorganisms within the ocean, they will also liberate huge amount of carbon dioxide. And if you go to the origin of the Earth, from the Big Bang theory of 12.5 billion years ago, from the 6.5 billion years ago when the glaciation, or when this universe, and the 6.5 billion years ago when you have seen the solar system, 4.5 billion years ago you have seen within the solar system your planet, your moon, your Earth and moon. Then the 3.5 billion, 3.5 to 4 to 3.8 billion years ago, you have seen the first life on this Earth. That is the blue-green algae or cyanobacteria. And these microorganisms, they are the unseen majority. We cannot see them because sometimes they are smaller than 5 micron. But they are supporting the existence of the higher trophic levels in huge amount because they are the core food for these higher trophic levels. What is the number of that microbes? It is 10 to the power 30 sometimes. If you see, sometimes the scientists talked about that if I add one by one these microbes, then I will cross 60 galaxies around each. And if you want to see the weight of this, it is 275,000 blue sperm whale weight. Can you imagine what is the weight of this 10 to the power 30 numbers of bacteria and archaea? They are also 90% of the marine biomass. These microbes are not only present in the ocean, but they are also present in the terrestrial environment with the 10 to the power 29 in numbers. See these microorganisms in the marine and terrestrial biomes. You see, in the terrestrial biomes, you are getting the light, heat, rain, soil time. And your industry, that is growing very fast. You have your grassland, forest, wetland, lakes, agriculture field, microbes, estuary. On the other hand, you can get semi-arid region, and in another hand, you can get the tundra biome, the Alaska. So this crab and uses permafrost. But in the ocean, you see that deep sea, sea ice, photic zone, that means the light zone, that means the oxygen minimum zone. Because what is the oxygen minimum zone? This oxygen minimum zone is occurred due to excess eutrophication, nutrition. So the bacterial growth causes the huge amount of consumption of the oxygen, and that makes the oxygen minimum zone. It is sometimes called a death sea zone. And when the microbial decomposition is there is some respiration, that is liberate carbon dioxide. And we are using, you have seen from this picture, photosynthesis, decomposition, microbial biomass, that makes the fuel, and that fuel is used for this industry. So this microbial biomass is not in any case can be neglected for the humanity. I will talk about all the time regarding this. And these microorganisms affect the climate change. What it is talked about sometimes. Climate change is affecting or human activities is affecting the microorganisms. And these microorganisms, and is it affected by the climate change and human activities, they will come when this ocean, from where we are getting at least 50% of that food production, we means all the terrestrial organisms, they may perish in hunger. They may be surviving with literally starving condition. It was not my opinion. It was opinion from Professor Gavi Claturio. He is the evolutionary biologist. I will talk about him in some times also. So this climate change and environmental degradation, it causes unprecedented extinction and animal and plant lives, loss of biodiversity. Only this climatic change is not responsible for the loss of biodiversity. Human activities, consumption of meat, consumption of using the plants is also responsible for the loss of biodiversity. That I will tell you later on. Now you see, this elevated greenhouse concentration that causes the ocean with high temperature, acidification, as I talked about, eutrophication, then stratification, mixing of thermocline circulation, that is resulted into the El Nino or ENSO, what you call. Then it is causing excess nutrient supply, irradiation, and extreme weather events. Sometimes you have seen, that is the other disaster, natural disaster or man-made disasters due to this. If you see that during pre-industrial times, oceans become acidified by 0.1 unit. Now it is acidified 0.3 to 0.4 units. So warming of these oceans, changing the currents and extreme events like El Nino, ENSO, which disperses the pathogens into its new habitat. That means from north to southern part. As you know, in general, the waterborne infection increases with increasing temperature. I'll talk about later on. These earthworms, the northern countries, which become more susceptible to outbreaks of southern diseases like your malaria, dengue, cholera, and you have seen so many other diseases that we have seen it. You see, during 1992, 1,700 scientists warned the human. They talked about that the human impact puts the future of the living world at serious risk. And it comes into resonance after 2017, 25 years later. 21,000 scientists endorsing the same warning. They talked about that if you increase this temperature, in one hand, the sea level will rise. In another hand, the temperature of the ocean will rise. And this will reflect the total food web. That means the marine phytoplankton, which performs the half of the global photosynthesis carbon dioxide fixes, and that is round about 50 picogram per carbon per year, and producing half of the oxygen product at the dark conditions in the deep sea. So this global oceanic phytoplankton density, due to the rise in temperature, it is decreasing. So total population of this phytoplanktonic concentration, it is decreasing. It was happened in the last century. As a result, this, told you earlier, ocean warming resulted into oxygen minimum zones. As you know, plant releases at least 50% of the fixed carbon dioxide into the soil, and it is available for the microbial growth. So this elevated carbon dioxide concentration, that give an enhanced competition for the nitrogen between plants and microorganisms. You know, the carbon nitrogen ratio within the soil playing a very important role for the growth of the food. But this global oceanic phytoplankton density decreased, as I told you earlier. Now this oceanic warming, desacidification, eutrophication, And overuse. Overuse means the overuse of examples like fishing, tourism, which in tandem, that means in together, cause the decline of the coral reefs. It is bleaching of the coral reefs. It's another ecosystem which we are destroying by time to time with the increasing of the climate change. And this may cause the ecosystem shift towards the microalgae and the benthic cyanobacterial mats, in the ocean bed. This mats is playing the pillar of the food or trophic level. However, this environmental perturbation or disturbance of this coral bleaching can change the coral microbiome rapidly. Generally, microorganisms clay that I told you was disperse more easily. Microorganisms can disperse more easily than the macroscopic organisms. That is why this depth or microbial degradation that can giving more impact into the ocean ecosystem. And as a result, this ocean acidification causes bacteria and archaea to change gene expression in ways that support cell maintenance rather than their growth. Now you see that what are the microorganisms, how they are affecting this our agriculture and other human activities. You see, this use of this nitrogen and phosphorus fertilizer into the agricultural field, that is affecting the microbial processes. You see, the huge amount of anthropogenic climate change that increases nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide emission from the agriculture, from the industry as well. That also affects the microorganisms. From your wastewater treatment process, that also affects the microorganisms. Your eutrophication, that means huge amount of nitrogen and phosphate within the ecosystem, that will also affect the microbial population. And you see that these anthropogenic activities changes or reduces the microbial diversity. In one hand, their diversity we are losing, their number we are losing. And simultaneously, we are losing their functional capability to support the plant growth. And you see, these microorganisms, which is playing an important role, that means the mythogenic bacteria, bite this cattle. You see this slide and my last slide will corroborate for one thing that I will show you. Please keep this slide in your mind, and when I will show you the last slide, you can have a parity within these two activities. And you see, we are going for intensive culture of food grains. Why? That is the food security. That is the requirement. That is why we are going for intensive and semi-intensive in a agricultural field twice or thrice for the production of the food crops to make this 6 to 8 billion people in the world. And these organisms, when it is affected, that will cause, this climate will cause so many diseases. What are these diseases? I will tell you, according to WHO, 1,415 number of diseases so far registered by the WHO. And they told that 67% of these diseases are vector-borne. Out of these 67%, 70% of them are zoonotic. Zoonotic means animal or wild animal borne. You see, your COVID, your SARS, your MERS, your Jika, your Nipah, your Ebola, your bubonic plague, smallpox, they are all related with these diseases. The vector-borne, food-borne, or air-borne, or water-borne, whatever it is, they are particularly susceptible to the effect of the climate change. If there is a climate change, these food-borne or vector-borne diseases will be proliferated according to the nature of the climate. For vector-borne diseases, climate change will affect the distribution of vectors. Suppose like malaria and dengue fever, they are the two vector-borne diseases. They are highly sensitive to climate change. As I told you earlier, this will be coming from northern part to the southern part. And this climate change can facilitate the spread of the vector-borne pathogens by prolonging the transmission season. Once upon a time, the transmission season was less. Now it becomes prolonged. And it is especially applicable for the Aedes aegypti, the major vector for dengue, Jika, Chikungunya, and yellow fever viruses. And it is in combination with the other mosquito-borne diseases and tick-borne diseases, such as your Lyme disease. Millions of people are affected. And they are predicting a very new risk under this climate change. You see, these diseases are already within us, but they are predicting some new risk under this climate change. And that infectious diseases, including the several vector-borne diseases as well as waterborne diseases, are strongly influenced by this climate variability. During my first session, I had told you this large-scale climate phenomena, such as ENSO, that my environmental participants or those who are doing some research on ENSO, that means this El Nino Southern Oscillation. It is an atmospheric event. It is happened in the Pacific Ocean. It is also associated, very surprisingly to your mind, it is also associated with the malaria, dengue fever, Zika virus, cholera, plague. Plague, you see, it was originated, do you know, sometimes in 16 AD. It was the first. When it came after, sometimes in 1300, then it is Justinian. Okay, so this plague, African horse sickness, and many other important human-animal diseases. So, climate change is predicted to increase not only the spreading of these diseases, but also antibiotic-resistant human pathogens. Because these pathogens are mutated in such a way, in a so rapid version, most of the antibiotics that we are using, it's become resistant. And I will take you this slide for how this climate change exacerbates the impact of pathogens. You see, this your mosquito-borne pathogens. You see, these microorganisms which is affected in the ocean, the number of creatures are affected by this. You see, the human being. I'm sure about it that when you are observing this pandemic COVID situation, you have seen how it was transmitted from either Asian country or European country to your own country. This handshake, this movement by air, it is coming, it is spreading. These diseases within the human population. It is not new. It is happened earlier also. And this climate change and human activities, they are decreasing the population growth and increasing the antibiotic resistance microorganisms. And you see, in the last one, this anthropogenic climate change increases the disease in the food. All you know, for this food, we are dependent on the pollination. And for this pollination, we are inhibiting the activities of the pollination, that is called natural pollination. How? Because of using the DDT. Do you know? We are losing 200 million tons of yield every year in this world. That means how much food security we are losing, can you imagine? So this is all happened due to this, either directly or indirectly. Now I get to the last part of my story, that how this icy research, that means when we have started with this permafrost, the ice core, the scientists are drilling at least 2 miles beneath this ice core. And from this ice core, suppose this Tibetan plateau, from the ice core of Buria ice cap, they have revealed 33 groups of virus. And 28 of them are still not known to the science. So, these deadly pathogenic microbes, why I call it deadly pathogenic microbes? Because I am concerned with those microbes, those who are pathogenic. They are causing either epidemic or endemic, or epidemic or pandemic to the society. Now these deadly pathogenic microbes are also spreading poleward and upward in elevation, killing the people, cattle and crops. As I told you, these 30 microbiologists from 9 nations, they have published the consensus statement in the Journal of Nature, Review Microbiology. What is the importance of this, their study? What is the importance of this consensus statement? They told that this ice core, the pathogens or microbes which is present within this ice core, they are coming out due to climate change, due to melting of the permafrost, and ultimately affecting the human community. This is a dangerous statement they have made in 2018. And we have faced the first music in the 2020 with this COVID. It is really the statement which is done by this scientist. But don't think that throughout the history, if you want to study the virus, bacteria, and human being, they started to see, they started to get their habitat side by side. But some of them become virulent. That causes, starting from bubonic plague to smallpox. I hope that you are thinking about this. What is the first pandemic disease in the human history? It is called typhoid. 430 to 460 before Christ. The typhoid was the disease which caused the devastation in the human population, as you have seen this year due to COVID. So this is, in the history of the pandemic, the first disease to human being, it was typhoid. Then bubonic plague, sometimes it is called Black Death, Justinian plague, and up to this smallpox. And you see, this virus or bacteria, if you want to eradicate, remove it, finish, you cannot do this thing. So it is best, it is better, as it was earlier. You have to go for remedial measure. You have to go for vaccination. Because otherwise, what man I have done, you are in the first mention, that is called procrastination. And 4,20,000 years old. So, as the earth warms, more permafrost will melt. And that have been frozen for thousands of years. But we do not know how many of them are to be exposed. And if suddenly exposed to deadly bacteria and viruses, what will happen? If it exposed right now, that means COVID. And what will happen after COVID? That is not known to us. So these melting glaciers will unleash virulent viruses that trigger pandemics. The soil melt and releasing these ancient viruses. So melting ice could open a Pandora's box of diseases in near future. This is not a gossip only. This is not a story to take that Chande Mamar story. This is the reality. I will tell you that story, which will give you the reality. It's an incident of this Arctic cycle, which was occurred. I had died with the infection of the anthrax, and it was buried in the permafrost. And during the summer of this 2016, it was released. This infectious anthrax was released into the nearby water, soil, and into the food. So the people were getting affected by this infectious disease, which was buried in the permafrost or in the ice core 75 years ago. Now you can think about it. If there is more than 2,000 reindeer that is grazing nearby became infected, that causes small infection. And what happened? Which was happened in the last 20th century. More than 1 million reindeer died from anthrax. And they were buried into the graves. Because you see, that is the 1 million. So where they will bury? Where these carcasses will be buried? So what happened? They were buried in the surface. At least they make it 7,000 burial grounds in northern Russia. This is the fear. What else? If this anthrax virus, anthrax bacteria come up for lurking beneath this frozen soil, and if they start infection with these people, I'll tell you side by side, one by one, how is melting of this ice or permafrost give birth to the diseases. The temperature in the Arctic side is rising quickly, and which is, as I told you, 3 times more than the rest of the world. And these infectious agents, they are released from the ice of the permafrost. That is why Claverie told, permafrost is a humans or animals that is preserved with the permafrost. So some have caused this. Some of them, that means this infectious diseases, which was buried into the permafrost, causes epidemics in the past. In the past means that is the bubonic plague, that is Justin plague, that is Black Death, that is Spanish flu. So these are the epidemics which was caused maybe due to these infectious agents, which was buried years into the either in the Tibetan plateau or in the Alaskan permafrost. So when the people and animals have been buried in the permafrost for the centuries, then this infectious agent, someday it will be unleashed. And obviously you are thinking that what is the relation between them? The scientists have discovered the fragments of this RNA from this ice cover, and it was proved that these RNA fragments, this sequencing factor of the amino acids, they are quite similar with the viruses and bacteria now causing the epidemics or endemics or pandemics recent years. The same thing was happened in the 1918 with the Spanish flu. It was discovered in the corpses of buried in the mass graves in Alaskan tundra. Again in the smallpox and bubonic plague, which was likely to be buried in Siberia. That means these deadly infections of these 18th and 19th centuries may come back because their body has all corpuscles. They have been buried into the permafrost. So the day will come, if the summer ice melts, then this disease may come up. And particularly, especially near the cemeteries where the graves are, that means the victims of these infections. It was told by Boris Revich and Marina Polinas. You see, NASA scientists also discovered successfully, and they have also revived it may be in your mind, sir, if this bacteria remain millions of years or thousands of years, whether it is possible that they will be revived? Yes. Yes. NASA scientists successfully revived some of the bacteria that had been encased in the frozen pond of Alaska 32 years ago. And they have also named it that the Corynebacterium pleistocenium that had been frozen in the Pleistocene period. In the Pleistocene period means this woolly mammoth, the big mammoth, the largest mammoth in the world, still roamed at that time in this earth. Once again, this bubonic plague, which causes 40% of the population into the death pool, their bodies was buried into the upper layer of the permafrost on the banks of the Koyama River. And after 120 years, when the flood occurred in this Koyama, that speed up the spreading of these diseases. And it was proved by the State Research Center of Virology and Biotechnology in Novelbury School that they tested the remains of the Stone Age people buried in the southern Siberia in the region of Gorny Altai. They have proved that this bacteria, these viruses or microbes which is present with the same genomic factors that is present today, which is observed the similarity of the corpuscles of the man who had died during viral epidemics in the 19th century. They have been able to identify the spores, source, S-O-R-E-S, source of this smallpox. That is, they have detected the fragments of this DNA, which is similar of this. So once the ice started melting, this microbe starts swimming in the ground, seemingly unaffected. That means they are not in a position to affect anyone. But when they are revived, this virus became infectious. And some of the virus that microbes that I have told you, 8 million years old bacteria that had also been lying dormant in the ice. They are also present beneath the surface of a glacier in the Bacon and Mullins valleys of Antarctica. They may come up. Some bacteria also revived. Some bacteria are also revived, which has been extracted at least 1 lakh years ago. Some bacteria that can cause the same spores like the tetanus and Clostridium botulism. As you know, the botulism disease, it's a severely painful disease caused by this Clostridium botulinum. Some fungi, they are also survived within the permafrost for a long time. Some viruses, they are also survived for a lengthy periods. But it is sure that all the bacteria which come up to the life after being virus, they are not being revived. But cleverly, in 2004, revived 2 giant viruses from the Siberian permafrost at least 100 feet underground, for which has been frozen for 30 years ago, and he named it as the Pithovirus sibericum and Mollivirus sibericum. And he has shown that once they were revived, the viruses quickly become infectious and caused viral outbreak. But he told that they are not doing infection to the human being. So we are saved. Now you see, most of the viruses are rapidly inactivated outside the host cell when they are coming. That is due to light, desiccation, or spontaneous biochemical degradation. You see, these viruses, what I am talking about, this is not this life of those era, but I am talking about the life of the human being that you have seen under the family of dominant species, that your Neanderthal, that is your Denisovans, which was affected reduced of viruses during the 30,000, 40,000 years ago. And these disease person, were spotted in Russia. And it was seen that the viruses which is affecting these Neanderthal mans are similar with the genomic sequence what this present day epidemic caused. So human populations have lived there, they have been sickened and died in 1,000 years ago. And another scientist, that is the Krishna, he has also revived this bacteria which is encased 750,000 years ago. Now I will tell you in my last slide that you have seen in the slide where the microorganisms are affected by the climate change and the human activities. Now this microbial population, this microbial community, how do they help the human being? That is why in my title, Warning Humanity, still I will say these microbes will help the humanity to be survived. How? That I will tell you. Microbial interactions that play to mitigate and control the climate change and its effect. How? First one, you see, reducing the transmission of Jika, Dengue, and Chikungunya viruses. How does it possible? By introduction of Biochar into the population of the Aedes aegypti. If it is done, then that will release into the environment and they will kill the Aedes aegypti. So there will be no Aedes aegypti. That means the vector-borne disease like the Jika, Dengue, and Chikungunya may be controlled. You see, as I told you earlier, in the agriculture, you have seen that the agricultural field releases huge amount of nitrous oxide. So this huge amount of nitrous oxide, if you want to combat or control this, then you have to apply some nitrous oxide reductive activity. And that has been done by some bacteria in the soybean field, so it can mitigate the nitrous oxide emission. You know that the nitrous oxide is one of the greenhouse gas effects. Again, as I told you earlier, that the methane emission is another cause for the global warming, and this methanogenesis or the methanogenic bacteria that causing liberation of the methane. This methane, if you want to reduce it, and if you manipulate some of the microorganisms within the rumen of this category, so that can reduces the effect of the methane emission. And if you want to produce these fungal proteins that can replace the meat, that can replace the lowering dietary carbon footprint, and you know, the replacement of meat, that the meat eating population, they are causing more responsible for climate change. Can you imagine? When our population is increasing, we are increasing 3 times more the population of meat producing organisms. You see, in one hand, there is an increase in the human population, and we are increasing 3 times more meat producing organisms. Do you know per day how much or how many animal is sacrificed for us? It is 200 million animals we are sacrificing for getting meat for this human being. So you can imagine how much loss of biodiversity is caused due to this consumption of meat. And now if you want to reduce the meat production, then you have to combat with the other one. That means scientists are working for these fungal proteins that can replace the human meat demand. Another one, That is the biochar. As you know, biochar is the charcoal. It is produced by the pyrolysis, and it is used in the soil, which is called amendment of the soil. It's a very stable compound, and that can maintain a very good cohesion with the microorganisms, which can sequester huge amount of carbon dioxide from the environment. So application of this biochar, this is done by these microorganisms that can also mitigate the effects of the climate change. And lastly, you have seen the construction of the wetlands that can generate some cellulosic biofuel, which is using the waste nitrogen from the wastewater treatment. So from this wastewater treatment of this constructed bio wetland, if we get the help of this microbial, so that can be able to make the humanity long-lasting and surviving. So my friends, my very respected listeners and the viewers of this webinar, I will request you, please do something in this respect, that by means of which we can reduce the effect of climate change. What are the responsible factors for this? That is, the responsible factors are the greenhouse gases. So from the production point of view or the source point, if you can reduce, minimize, reuse these items that will not cause much of the climate change, then I do hope that our environment, our humanity will be saved. So thank you, my friends. Thank you, dear colleagues and the listeners, to giving me this opportunity to share some of my views against this humanity. Okay, thank you. Now
Okay, it's okay, fine.
Okay. Sir, can El Nino affect this year due to shortage of pollution?
No. You see. As I told you, this lockdown situation, which has seized the industrial work or seized the changing factors in the climate, this is very temporary. Even then, you see, during this phase, sometimes in May, June, the resultant change in the climate increases the temperature. As a result, this melting of ice was huge, and it was tried to check. They have covered. So this fluctuation in the temperature, which causes the El Nino in the Pacific, it cannot be stopped. It is temporary season. It's a not long-term effect. What about the climatic changes? That means the environmental pollution you have seen. That means you are really enthusiastic to see some of the deers, some of the animals which is coming into your habitat. But already the scientists have told that it is the temporary. That means the pollution which is reduced only due to cease or the stopped temporary in the industrial activity. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much again for your valuable speech. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything?
No, sir. There is no more question in the chat box yet.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Now, Raja.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And now, can I leave this meeting because I have some work? Huh?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank
Sure,
you.
sir.
No problem.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
Thank
for
you, sir.
inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share some of my views with you and my audience. Thank you once again.
Yes, sir.
On behalf
We
of
also
me-
enrich, sir, by your valuable speech.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Over to
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I request our another convener, Dr. Anirban বিশ্বাস, to introduce our next speaker from Bangladesh, Dr. Mohammad Shibli Sadiq. Anirban, sir, over to you.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Suchishmita.
Excuse me, Anirban,
Hello,
sir.
Shibli.
Hello.
I am privileged.
Excuse me, Anirban, sir, and
Is there an issue?
no, you can carry on. No, sir, you can carry on.
Is it okay? Okay.
It's
Hello,
okay, sir.
Shibli.
You can carry on.
Am I audible to you also?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, fine. So I am happy to welcome you, Shibli, here on behalf of my college, Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, and on behalf of Department of Environmental Science. We welcome you. Actually, Shibli, specialist of environment compliance and disaster management and geographic information services, that is called CEGIS Bangladesh, and he's also a postdoctoral fellow and in Delft University, Netherlands. And before that, actually, he has PhD from Kyoto University, and before that also, when we met first in Ghent University, Belgium, when Shibli was a student there. By proper preparation, pre and post disaster preparation. So they are working on this field for a long time. Now I request Shibli to share his field experience as a title, Naila recovery in Bangladesh. So now, Shibli, I request you to present.
Thank you very much, Anirban, and thank you everyone, and especially your colleague for inviting me here. And I still remember those days when we were like almost.
Yes, everything is fine.
Everything is fine. So you can see one slide or two slides.
Everything is fine. You carry on, please.
Yeah. Can you say one slide or two slides? Can you give me feedback? Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. So, as the title mentioned, I will talk about post-disaster recovery. So the title seems a little bit different from the announcement. I rephrased it. I am saying like theory to practice. So before going into detail, I will show you just one slide. And here you can see this is a newspaper headlines after the cyclone Amphan. You know, like in this May, we had I think both India and Bangladesh, we were affected severely by cyclone Amphan. And this picture says that after the cyclone Amphan, we had Idul Fitr, and people are standing and praying their Idul prayer, you see, in needed water. So what it actually reminds us that 11 years ago, we had another similar cyclone. The name was Cyclone Aila. It was also happened in May. And if you see that cyclone, track of the cyclone Amphan and track of the cyclone Aila was almost similar, and that cyclone was also severely affected both Bangladesh and India. And you can see like this is some picture of that time, that the entire area was inundated by cyclone Aila, because the embankment that was protecting that area from tidal flood was damaged and washed away, and the impact was very severe. And similar to that disaster situation, we are facing the almost same situation right now after cyclone Amphan. We have seen after cyclone Aila, billion of dollars has been spent. Lots of international NGOs and the donor agency, especially World Bank and UNDP, the Netherlands embassies, they invested a lot in a try to recover the area. But the situation of cyclone Amphan says that that investment, or that their try actually didn't work very well. So today I will focus on cyclone Aila, but you will get answer why that recovery didn't go well, or what actually what wrong happened in that recovery process. So first I want to say, like, what is recovery? Like, this is a very simple definition, and this is I think the common illustration of the recovery. And the definition says that a recovery or post-disaster recovery is a process, and which includes a lots of activities, or a set of activities that includes disaster response, disaster early recovery, disaster reconstruction and rehabilitation, and some people say build back better. And these activities, the aim of this activity is to improve the condition of the post-disaster situation. And some people say the aim is to restore the situation which was before the disaster, or some people say no, we need to move forward, we need to do it better than the pre-disaster situation. So there are some buzzwords, like some you will often say in the literature, that comprehensive recovery. So comprehensive means integration of multi-sectoral development and mainstreaming. Some people say holistic recovery. That means considering all sectors interconnected with each other and behave like a single system. And you will see some terms like resilient recovery, that actually refers that recovery transforms the society and make the society more resilient than before. And there's another term which is now very popular, build back better. So what is build back better? And there are lots of definitions, and so far this is the one of the agreed definition that was given by UNISDR. Now they call it UNDRR, like United Nations Office of Disaster Risk Reduction. They call it the use of recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction phases to increase the resilience of the nations and action measures into restoration of physical infrastructure, societal system, and into the revitalization of livelihood, economies, and environment. So in this definition, what we can understand that build back better is a systematic approach that includes recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction, and that integrated with disaster risk reduction measures. And the aim of this approach is to restoration of physical infrastructure, social system, and revitalization of livelihood, economy, and environment. And there another simple definition which tells us that build back better, it simply means build back stronger, build back faster, build back more inclusively. There's some more theory about this build back better, and one of the most common was, or most earliest one was the proposition of Bill Clinton, the US President Bill Clinton. After the 2004 Indian tsunami, he visited some places in Indonesia, and then they prepared a report, that we should prepare the report, and they gave 10th proposition of Build Back Better. And the 10th or one of the proposition is that the good recovery must leave communities safer by reducing risk and building resilience. Now, what I want to focus is that I want to see whether after the cyclone recovery, the community was left safer. And how can we need to know, like at the time of recovery process, we need to monitor the recovery, right? Recovery process. We need to give the feedback of recovery process. And one way of doing that is to evaluate the ongoing process. But the tools for such evaluation is very limited. And if we see the example of most of the examples are from developed world, and in those examples we see they use very advanced or any approach that actually uses lots of data. But we know, like in developing country like Bangladesh, India, and other countries, that our database is not very strong, and our monitoring of recovery process is not very strong. So we have lots of limitation to use those advanced tools for recovery evaluation. But there are some other available approach. So today I will present two simple tools that will help us to evaluate recovery progress or recovery process. And with that two tools, we will see what went wrong with Cyclone Ida recovery. And the example I am giving, or I will give today, is from Bangladesh, but I think you can relate this with West Bengal of India as well. So the first tool, I call it recovery characterization and categorization matrix. So actually I developed this tool at the time of my PhD. So this is the reference of that paper. Yeah, this is open access paper, so you can easily download it and you can read it if you want to, if you are interested and if you want to know more. The tool is very simple. It's just a matrix. You can see this is just a matrix or a graph. The one axis shows that post contribution of recovery measures to vulnerability reduction, and another axis contains the effectiveness score of recovery measures. And if we multiply these two actors, we can see whether that recovery measures is agreeing with the safety aspect of Build Back Better. Because we know, like, it is important to match our recovery efforts with the objective of Build Back Better. If we cannot ensure the Build Back Better, our recovery will not produce good result. So objective of that tool is whether the recovery is aligned to the goal of Build Back Better. And in this tool, we adopted only the safety goal of Build Back Better. We know, like, the Build Back Better has a diversified goal. So one of the important goal is safety. And in this tool actually adopted that safety goal. And it examines the it examines the recovery measures by two criteria. First, whether that recovery measure is effective as a long-term measure, because we know this is the most important part to make a recovery following an approach of Build Back Better, that the risk reduction measures or recovery measures we are implementing, it should be effective for a long term, not for short term. For example, relief. Relief is not a long-term measure. It helps people just to survive during the disaster situation. But it does not help people to survive for a long time. When you discontinue the relief effort, the people who was dependent on the relief, he could not survive if he does not have other means of living. And the second criteria is contribution to disaster risk reduction. And we define here this contribution to disaster risk reduction is contribution to pre-disaster vulnerability reduction. Because we know one of the main objective of recovery measure is that the vulnerability the people facing before the disaster, it should be reduced, or it should not be at place after the recovery. If people are similarly vulnerable even after the recovery, that recovery will not produce any good result, and they will fall into the same disaster situation again. What we have seen after Cyclone Amphan as well. After Cyclone Amphan, Cyclone Ida, we have invested a lot. We did a recovery, but that recovery did not go well because we could not address the pre-disaster vulnerability reduction. That's why people are suffering similar way after cyclone Amphan as well. So how to apply this tool? So first step of this tool is we need to identify what are the recovery measures we are implementing or the government or NGOs are implementing. And for that identification, we can do institutional survey, literature review, and field observation. After that, we need to evaluate each of those measures based on two criteria. One, that evaluate its measure by its contribution to pre-disaster vulnerability reduction. And how can we do that? We can do that by expert opinion. We can interview the experts who are involved in recovery process, and we can ask those experts to judge those recovery measures, whether those are contributing to vulnerability reduction or not. So the tool contains a simple scale from 0 to 5, and we can request an expert to give a score against each of the recovery measures. If they think one measure is very highly contributing to vulnerability reduction, they can give a score 5. But if they think it's not contributing at all, then they can give 0. And then the second or other criteria is evaluate its measure by its effectiveness. And we defined effectiveness as a success of that recovery measure as a long-term solution. So for this evaluation, we can do household survey, or we did household survey for this one. And while doing the household survey, we actually asked the household head about or request them to give a score of based on their opinion, that how much the recovery measures is helping them, or how they see the success of that recovery measures as a long-term solution. And we can request them to give to quantify the degree of success based on a scale that ranges from 0 to 5. If they think it's not successful at all, they can give 0. But if they think it's highly successful, then they can give 5. And after that, if when we have two score, if we multiply this score, the multiplied score we will have actually give us the notion whether this measure is satisfying the goal of Build Back Better or not. This and we can put those scores in this matrix or in this graph. If you see, like, this is the effectiveness score that is in x-axis, and in y-axis we can put the contribution to vulnerability reduction score, and then we can see the location of that recovery measures in this graph, and you can see some color gradient. If so, this blue color, this blue or blue to yellow color range means retreat. Actually, based on this category, there are some characteristics. There are some categories of recovery, and we classified recovery in 4 groups. One is retreat. That means recovery measures is not producing any good results. We need to think alternative. That is retreat. So if we find any recovery measures in this yellow, in this green to yellow zone, that means we are in retreat position. We have to think alternative recovery solution. If we find the recovery measures falling in yellow to orange zone, that means the community is struggling to reach the normalcy. Normalcy means the condition which was prevailing before the disaster. So people are struggling to reach that condition. So if we have recovery measures falling in this zone, that means we need to improve our recovery measures, or we need to redesign our recovery measures. And then the orange, that is returning to a normalcy with pre-vulnerability reduction measures. That means people are in a way to returning their normalcy, and they have limited consideration of vulnerability reduction, but not still not very successful. But if we have a score like 25, or if we have the recovery measures within this region, then we can say, okay, the recovery is producing good results. It may sound a little bit complicated still, so let's see one example. For example, after Cyclone Ida, lots of NGOs has implemented several recovery measures. So in the sector of housing, the first measure was emergency shelter. You can see, like during Ida, the houses were destroyed by the strong surge and the wind. So the people who were displaced by the cyclone, they started living in highways or high places, and NGOs try to help them to help them to building their emergency shelter. For example, you can see the people are living along the roadside, so people help them to giving some shelter materials so that they can build their emergency shelter. So this is just to survive for emergency period. And then they call it transitional shelter. This is the another recovery measures. So NGO constructed houses similar to that picture, and the lifetime of these houses are 3 to 4 years, or 1 to 3 years. The idea is that people will temporarily live in these houses, but once they will have their own capacity, within this 1 or 3 years, they will build their own houses. This is this solution, they call it transitional shelter. But in our field experience, we have seen people who are still living in those houses after 11 years. So that means that the transitional shelter are people treating those transitional shelter as a permanent solution. And then our third solution was core family house or core family shelter. This is seems like a permanent house. So UNDP helped to construct those houses to people. So people who can live there, they can live there for long term. But the thing is that only 4% people have those opportunity to receive those aid from the UNDP. And at the same time, Bangladesh government also gave people around $250 to rebuild their houses to recover themselves from the disaster situation. And people also adopted some other disaster risk reduction measures. So in Koira area, if you see the houses were mostly earthen before Cyclone Ida. So after Cyclone Ida, people replaced those houses, earthen houses were replaced by, we locally call tin, it is corrugated iron sheet houses, and or houses by thatched roof material. This is Kolpata actually. They collected this leaf from Sundarbans, and they can prepare their roof by those thatched roof material. So this is one replacement or one disaster risk reduction measures people adopted after Cyclone Ida. And at the same time, we have seen NGO help them to build houses. When people reconstructed their houses, they adopted some additional measures against the strongest wind. You see the corner bracing, you see the cross bracing for the fencing or the wall of the houses. These kind of measures help them to prevent their houses against the cyclonic wind. Now, as I told before, like we developed a tool. So based on this tool, we try to see how these recovery measures falls into this recovery matrix. And what we have seen that most of the recovery measures are falling in the zone of green to orange. That means people are still, our community is still struggling to reach normalcy. That means the disaster risk reduction measures and the recovery measures implemented by NGOs are not producing good results. And I conducted this survey in 2017, 18, and 19. And unfortunately, the cyclone Amphan proved me true that even after cyclone Amphan, those houses were again washed away, and people are again displaced by the cyclone, and they are living in emergency shelters along the roadside or some other places where they can find suitable area. This is the same picture for local economic livelihoods. We have seen like recovery measures where cash for work, livelihood support for like NGOs started giving them some support like a boat or agriculture inputs or seeds. So this kind of support people were getting from the NGOs, some microcredit NGOs giving some microcredit or loan. And government also gave some direct cash benefit to the local people, direct cash to the local people, and also people received lots of training on how to survive or how to aware themselves again about the cyclone disaster. And when we plotted those recovery measures in this matrix, again, unfortunately, we have found that all of the recovery measures are falling in the zone of red to orange. That means people are struggling to reach a normalcy. That means the recovery measures are not giving any good results, and it's not actually aligned to the goal of build back better. And the cyclone cyclone Amphan actually proved this result true, because people are again suffering in the same way as they did after cyclone Ida. So now I will talk about the second tool, that is synthetic recovery curve. So in the first tool, what we have seen, like we actually evaluated each individual recovery measures to see whether those recovery measures are meeting the goal or requirement of build back better or not. And now we will see the progress, how to see the recovery is progressing or how it is progressing. So we have published this tool in 2 journals. You can see this. I think the first one is free, open access, but second one is the book chapter. It's not free, unfortunately, but if you are interested, you can communicate with me through the organizer. I can give you the author's copy. Anyway, that the tool of synthetic recovery curve will help us to see what is the present condition of the community. And it will help us to compare the present condition with the earlier condition, like condition before the disaster, condition after the disaster. And we can also see at the progress, how it has been progressed through a year, through several years. It will be like this example will help you to understand in better ways. So this is the recovery curve. So if you see, like the curve started from pre-ILA. ILA is the disaster, pre-ILA situation. So the escorts means the condition. Escort 5 means the condition which is resilient, and the escort 0 means people are living with aid. So even before the disaster happened, like if cyclone Ida, the condition of coastal polder, I hope you understand the coastal polder. The polder is the earthen embankment in Bangladesh, especially in the coastal area. Actually, the government constructed coastal polder or earthen embankment along the rivers to prevent the area from the salinity intrusion and the tidal flood, not to prevent the storm surge, but regular tide and normal storm tide, but not the storm tide like cyclone Ida. So we have seen that the condition of that coastal polder was very weakening or very weak even before the cyclone Ida, and the curve actually shows how the condition how was the condition immediately after the cyclone, then 1 year after the cyclone Ida, then 3 years after cyclone Ida, then 5 years, and at present. This at present means I conducted this survey during 2017 to 2018. So this at present actually showed the condition during 2017 to 2018. So this is a recovery curve, and I call it synthetic because this data I generated were from based on people's opinion. So these are not direct measurement. I could not survey the polder because it was not possible, or there was no data available during the period. During the
I am hello, Shibli.
yeah
I am sorry.
yeah
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but maybe some problem internet connectivity happened. So can you
yeah.
please start representing? I mean, from this slide. I mean, just switch it off and
I
start,
see.
start one
Yeah.
slide.
Okay.
So you can start over this slide, no problem. But just
Yeah.
step by step. Okay.
And is it better now? Is it okay? I think it's working. Is it okay?
Yes. Now it is fine. Now it is fine. Okay.
Sorry, sorry for the
No,
technical
no,
problem.
it's
I
fine.
could
It
not
is
see
just
it.
connectivity issue. It is connectivity issue. That's all. Okay. Carry on.
Yeah, okay. So should I repeat this slide again? Okay, I can do that. So this is a recovery curve. The recovery curve actually tells us the condition of that particular component, in this case, the coastal polder, and how is the condition of coastal polder over the period in between, starting from before the disaster and at present. Here at present means 2017 to 2018, because I surveyed during that period. And if you know that, if you don't know what is coastal polder is simply the earthen embankment, the area encircled by earthen embankment. We call it polder. And the government of Bangladesh started constructing this coastal polder or earthen embankment to prevent the area from salinity intrusion and tidal flood, not the storm surge. But unfortunately, people started believing that these coastal polder would help them or would prevent them or from the storm surge as well. And that is another issue, but that actually never happened. So after Cyclone Aila, so this coastal polder actually washed away, and the entire area was flooded. So this recovery curve actually tells us how the recovery or reconstruction of coastal polder progressed over the period. And this curve actually shows the condition of coastal polder before the cyclone Ida, then how the condition immediately after the cyclone Ida, then 1 year of Ida, 3 year, 5 year, and at present. So this is a common way of presenting the recovery progress, but here I am saying this is a synthetic curve. I am calling it synthetic because I could not measure the polder embankment condition by engineering survey, and there was no data available, and there is no data available between those 10 years period as well. So that's why we had to go alternative approach, and that approach was that we could ask local people to rate the condition based on some scale, numerical scale or qualitative scale. So that scale was from 0 to 5. If the local people felt that there was no polder, no embankment at all, entire embankment was washed away by the cyclone, then they could they gave the score 0. But if they think no, the embankment was very strong and it was resilient, so then they could give the score 5. And unfortunately, we have seen, like, even before the cyclone Aila, the condition was in between 2 to 3. So that means it was not very good condition. The structure was very weak, and as a result, at the time of Aila, it was washed away by the storm surge. And we have seen just to reach the condition of pre-disaster situation, it took almost 3 years. There are two line. Two line is because there are two polder there, two polder in two different areas, or you can say like two different areas. And what we have seen, like after 5 years, the condition of coastal polder was little bit better than before, but again it was started decaying or started weakening. And at the time of 2017 and 2018, the condition was worse than before the cyclone Ida. And unfortunately, this result proved true by the cyclone Amphan, because after cyclone Amphan, the entire area was flooded again. So let me help you to understand how did I construct this card, or how can we apply this tool in our another research. So as I said, like this was people's based on people's opinion. So we actually we can conduct focus group discussion with the affected people or the beneficiaries of the cycle recovery of the recovery projects, and we developed a questionnaire, and that questionnaire contained a question like how is the condition of different sector. For example, condition of coastal polder, condition of cyclone, condition of livelihood, or condition of sanitation, housing. So these are all different sectors. So we can phrase one question for one sector, and we can simply give a table to the or a score sheet to the give your score. If you think that condition was best, resilient, you can give a score 5. But if you think the condition was worst and there was no such sector, functioning sector, then you can give 0. So due to time limitation, I will not describe that skill in detail here, but the skill must be described in word form so that people can understand what does the score 1 mean, what does the score 3 mean, what does the score 4 means. So anyway, and while during conducting the focus group discussion, you have to be very careful because you are asking some question that people have to recall their past. For example, in this case, I conducted the survey in 2017, and I asked them to give the answer based on their opinion, like how is the condition of a sector during 2009, 2010, 12, and 14. So for that reasons, the selection of these milestone years are important. In my research, I tried to select the milestone year, which was related to the remarkable recovery projects. For example, government started giving relief in 2009 after Cyclone Ida, so people can easily recall how was the condition at the time when the government was giving relief. Then after 1 year of Ida, they started taking emergency measures like emergency repair of infrastructure, emergency repair of houses. So people could easily recall those times when I say like how was the condition when the government was first trying to repair the embankment. But if I just ask them how was the condition in 2010, it could be difficult for them to recall. And to help them recalling, I actually gave them some pictures of published by different newspaper or published by different researchers during that time, so that they could easily recall their memory. So anyway, so based on that, during that focus group discussion, people actually giving some score of how is the condition of a particular sector in different years. And based on that score, actually construct this kind of recovery curve. And since this curve is constructed based on people-oriented data or people perception data, we call it synthetic recovery curve. So why this is important? Why we need to do or we need to evaluate the recovery progress in this way? Because when we have this curve, we can see how the recovery progressed and how is the condition at present, how was the condition before. We can decide whether the condition is good or bad. We can decide whether the recovery is giving good result or bad result. So this actually informs the disaster managers and the policymakers what went wrong. So I published these results in 2018 and 2019, I think, yeah. And unfortunately, this result proved true by Cyclone Amphan, because after Cyclone Amphan, if you see like here, this result says that the condition of condition of coastal polder is very weak, even worse than before the Cyclone Ida. And we warn that if a cyclone similar to Ida happen again, again the entire area will be inundated, and that actually happened after Cyclone Ida. This map actually shows that the area of my field survey area, and the red line shows that coastal polders. During Cyclone Ida, entire polder was washed away. I think the embankment was washed away, and after Cyclone Amphan, the similar situation happened again. Coastal polder breached at several places, leaving the entire area inundated even as of today. So this is the condition of other infrastructure. So those condition of other infrastructures are better compared to earlier situations. The other infrastructure includes mostly roads and bridges. But you need to, one thing is clear, that it's better than before, but it's still below the 4. And the descriptive scale of this score actually means that if it is below the 4, that means the condition is better, but it has not addressed the pre-disaster vulnerability issues. Or in other way, I can say, like, the reason these roads were vulnerable to cyclone has not been solved yet. So that's why, if the coastal, one of the reasons was that when they constructed this road, they considered coastal polder will prevent the storm surge, and these roads will be protected as well by the coastal polder. But unfortunately, the condition of coastal polder was very weak. They could not prevent the storm surge during Cyclone Amphan. As a result, again, all of this infrastructure were damaged by the Cyclone Amphan again. So what we learned, actually, we have learned that these two quick tools can help us to monitor recovery process and to inform disaster manager how to improve the recovery process as well, and what went wrong, what we have missed, and what we should adopt it more. And also, the recovery planning must consider root causes of vulnerabilities. We know, like, we have seen lots of phrases like climate change adaptation, and if you go to Bangladesh, you will see all the development projects are linked with climate change. All the NGOs are implementing projects related to climate change, but when they design those projects, they actually missed or ignore one basic thing, that root causes of vulnerability should be addressed first. If you cannot solve the root causes, you cannot solve, or that solution cannot give you any good result. And that actually happened happening in cyclone-related disaster in Bangladesh. We are seeing lots of new solutions are in practice, or people are implementing lots of new solutions, but they forget the root causes of vulnerability. As a result, people are still living in the same vulnerability. So we are calling as like a poverty trap. People are living in vulnerability trap. So this is all from me today. I hope you have you got little interest, and if you want to know more about these tools, you can download those papers and read in those papers. You can learn more about those tools. So thank you very much. I'm stopping my slides here.
Thank you, Dr. Shivli Shadik, for your very good presentation. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Suchishmita, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you, Shivli, for your very good presentation and enlightening us about the field scale scenario, actually what is happening there. And we know you are doing very tough job being in the field. And we have a few questions, but we cannot take all those. One question, I'm asking you on behalf of the participants. Okay, the question is, what is your perception about the people's participation in disaster recovery in different countries? As you have worked in different countries, so what is the people's perception about their role in participating in the disaster management plans?
This is actually very difficult to answer, and it's very important, and because we have seen like today people participation is very important, and we have seen mostly in the NGOs work that all the projects has been designed to ensure the people participation. But fortunately, I'm doing my postdoctoral research related to people participation in water management, and what we have seen, like when what we have found that there is a huge implementation gap of people participation, because we can divide all the stakeholders in two general groups. One is implementing group, another is adopting group. So the implementing groups who are actually implementing the projects, and adopting groups are who are actually adopting the projects. So participation means we need to take participation of the adopting actor in the planning process. But unfortunately, we have seen that these all of the project managers or the government or NGOs, they take participation as a tool to justify their project, or they're taking the participation as a normative criteria or just a criteria to fulfill the funding requirement, but they are not truly honest to the process of participation. And also there are some issues that we call the adaptability. We also need to think whether the society has ability to participate or not. And when I was doing interview with the government agencies, all the government agencies were giving opinion like people does not have any interest to participate. They are not interested at all. And I have seen some people are saying, some government people are saying people doesn't have enough ability to participate. They are not technically sound. So these are the perception from the implementing actor, but we do not know the perception or the perspective of the adopting actor or the local people. Is it true whether they don't have the ability to participate, or whether is it true that they don't have the technical knowledge to participate? We do not know, because when we actually design or plan a project and implement a project, we do feasibility study, we do environmental study. And the feasibility study tells us that whether this project is technically feasible or not, right? Whether the technology consider this project will be implementable in terms of economy or not. But those feasibility tools does not tell us like whether the local people are ready to accept that project or not, or whether the local people are ready to adopt that plan or not. So this is the reason why we always have a participatory implementation gap of participation, and that is true for disaster management as well. But fortunately, the process has been improved so far, and I have seen after the cyclone Ida, especially the NGOs work, when they decided, for example, when NGO decided who will be eligible to receive aid, for example, to receive a house from the NGO, and while deciding that eligible beneficiaries, they actually conducted series of meeting with the local people, and their process is that local people decided themselves who among them are eligible to receive that aid or not. But the problem is local people does not have access when they decide which area will be prioritized for this project. This is happening still today. Like we know, like for example, all the coastal area was affected by the cyclone Ida, but we have seen that all the recovery projects were implemented only in few places. So who actually made that prioritization? People did not have any access to that decision. So I think I could answer the question, not clearly, but I think you will get the notion what I am trying to give you. Yeah.
Yes, Shivli, you have. I think you have fulfilled the answer what the participants asked to know. And you see, people's participation is always a controversial thing all over the world. So it happens in your case also. Okay, now we are almost at the. Thank you, Shivli, once again for being a part and presenting with us. Now, we are almost at the last part of our webinar. Sujimita, please carry on.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now, I want to request Mr. Chikungunya Ghosh, Assistant Professor of Department of English, Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, who is also the academic convener of Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, to convey the vote of thanks. Chikungunya sir, over to you.
Thank you, Sujishmita. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, I should congratulate the Department of Environmental Science for organizing such a wonderful webinar. First of all, I should thank the eminent dignitarians who are present along with us, the resource persons, Dr. Apurva Ratan Ghosh, Professor, Department of Environmental Science, ex-director IQAC and ex-director UGC, Academic Staff College, and now it is the HRDC, then University of Burdwan, and his wonderful topic, Warning to Humanity, Microorganisms and Climate Change. It is something that actually informed us a lot. And the second resource person, Dr. Muhammad Shibli Sadiq, Associate Specialist, Environment Compliance and Disaster Management, Water Resources Division, Center for Environmental and Geographic Information Services, Bangladesh. His topic, Assessment of Post-Disaster Recovery, Case Study on Recovery in Bangladesh. Actually, this particular section I have heard with great interest. And obviously, we are in such a kind of a distress at this moment regarding the present environmental situations and how it is recovering at the present time. We should thank on behalf of Nabadwip Vidyasagar College. I am thanking you with my heart in greatest extent. And now I should thank the president of our governing body, and also the principal, Dr. Shapan Kumar Rai, Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, without whose active participation we cannot contribute to, or we cannot prepare such kind of or series of webinars that is continuing throughout these sessions, as you can know, from different departments. And there is one actually hosting this particular program, and at the same time she is from the Department of History, and also there is Shubhajit Sen, who is coming from the Department of Mathematics. They are actually working hard, and we cannot identify them, we cannot see them, but they're working hard, obviously. And also at the end, we should thank the participants, without whose active presence such a kind of a webinar, it cannot be become successful at the end. Okay, so please stay safe and take care. Almost it is evening, so we must say good evening to all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. We want to inform all the participants that we are requesting all of you to submit the feedback regarding today's webinar, and after the submission of your valuable feedback, you will receive your e-certificate of participation through your registered email. Thanks to all of you for your active participation in this webinar. Hope that all of you enjoyed the webinar and enriched yourself. I want to thank Dr. Apurva Ratan Ghosh and Dr. Muhammad Shibli Sadiq for their valuable lectures, and we are grateful that they have accepted our request and agreed to deliver a web lecture. I also want to thank our principal sir, Dr. Shapan Kumar Roy, coordinator of IQAC, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, our academic convener, Professor Chikungunya Ghosh sir, for their active support. I want to thank Mr. Shubhajit Sen, Faculty, Department of Mathematics, Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, Ms. Sravanti Das, Faculty, Department of History, Nabadwip Vidyasagar College, and all of my colleagues for their technical support, continuous help, and cooperation. Thank you, everyone. And last of all, I want to thank all the participants for their active participation. Thank you. Goodbye. So we are concluding this particular webinar. Okay, we are concluding this particular webinar. Thank you. Okay, participants can remove yourself from the webinar. Okay, participants can leave the meeting. Goodbye.